All right, so we're continuing on in Numbers chapter 15. If you remember, the report of the spies have come in. They've realized they're going to be staying around in Kadesh Barnea for a while. And so chapter 15 kind of sidetracked to a little bit more legal issues, dealing with the covenant. And so it seems to be that, hey, we're going to teach all the kids that are going to be going into the promised land what God requires, the sacrifices, and everything that God requires on that end. So it's a rehearsal for entering into the promised land, because those who are 20 years and older, well, they're not going to be going in. So this has to be for those who will be going in. And so we talked about specifically the drink offering and the meat offering that goes along with the voluntary offerings. What were the two voluntary offerings? Does anybody remember that? Fellowship, yes. And burnt offering, excellent. So those are offerings you give voluntarily. And then the sin offering and the guilt offering are the ones that are required. And so we talked about the drink offering and the meat offering, and then we talked about the first fruits of the harvest, giving that. And then we've talked about the sin offering, and so we're starting off in number 5 of our handout 17. Number 5 of our handout 17, defiant sin. And so we talked about the sin offering last when we left off.
Do you have? We have.
You have 17?
Yeah, but we left at 4.
We left at 4.
Oh, we left at 4.
Sin offering.
Oh, sin offering. Okay. So Numbers chapter 15, verse 22. Well, what's the sin offering for? For sin? Yeah, it's actually for sin that you do in ignorance. You don't even know you've done it. You know, we're born into sin. And so sin offering, that's what the sin offering is for. And the sin offering is always given first before you give your fellowship offering, because you have to have, the blood has to be sacrificed first for you to have fellowship, right? In order for you to have fellowship with God, you have to accept the blood of Jesus Christ now. Otherwise, you don't have any fellowship. So that's where the sin offering goes first. So Numbers chapter 15, verse 22. Numbers chapter 15 and verse 22. And if you have erred and not observed all these commandments which the Lord has spoken unto Moses, even all that the Lord hath commanded you by the hand of Moses, from the day that the Lord commanded Moses, and henceforth among your generations, then it shall be, if aught be committed by ignorance without the knowledge of the congregation, that the congregation shall offer one young bullock for a burnt offering, for a sweet savor unto the Lord, and his meat offering and his drink offering according to the manner, and one kid of the goats for a sin offering. And so, what do they give? What does an individual give for the nation? What's given for the nation?
Kid.
A kid, which is a goat. So one goat for a sin offering, and one bull for the burnt offering. And notice I switched. The Bible has the burnt offering first. It's giving preeminence to that, but in actuality, the sin offering is the first offering that is given. And so that's why I switched it up on our notes. For sin offering, the goat first, and then the bull. So if you have your big chart here, you notice that the goat is on a sin offering is for the tribal leader. So the tribal leader's giving his the offering before he can give the burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for all the congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, for it is ignorance, and they shall bring their offering, a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord for their ignorance. It shall be forgiven all the congregation of the children of Israel, and the stranger that sojourneth among them, seeing all the people were in ignorance. So, again, is this sin offering just for the Jewish nation? No, it's for anybody who comes in. If you have, if you have foreigners that come in who now are living among you, they are participating well. This law is for everybody. It's not just for one group of people. The sin offering is for everybody. Just like we've talked about before, salvation is for everybody. And so then B, we're going to start off in verse 27. If any soul sin through ignorance, then he shall bring a she-goat of the first year of the sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for the soul that sinneth ignorantly, when he sinneth by ignorance before the Lord, to make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. Ye shall have one law for him that sinneth through ignorance, both for him that is born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger that sojourneth among them. So, what if you're the individual? What do you get? A female goat, yes. One female goat for a sin offering. Now, you remember for the nation, the one day of the year when you have the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and remember where we talked about the two goats are brought forward, and then you have one that's a scapegoat and one that's sent off, and the other one then is sacrificed. And so here we have where that takes place with the sin for the nation. And so once a year, the nation is atoned. So that takes place on Yom Kippur. And then we have here for the individual, a female goat is given for your individual sins. Do we have any questions on that? All right, now we move into defiant sins. All right, so if you're giving a sin offering, what does that mean? You're repentant, aren't you? You know you've sinned. You know you have a sacrifice. You know blood is required for your sin. Now, a defiant sin, what kind of sin is that?
One that you know you're doing.
One that you're purposely doing and you're not sorry about it, all right? So I am choosing to do this. I understand the consequences and I disregard the consequences. I am not. I am proceeding forward. I'm defying God. I'm defying God. So this is where this comes in. So, verse 30, but the soul that doth aught presumptuously, in other words, sins defiantly, sins because he chooses to, whether he be born in the land or a stranger, the same reproaches the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Because he hath despised the word of the Lord, and hath broken his commandment. That soul shall utterly be cut off, his iniquity shall be upon him. So here we have individual will be cut off from the congregation. Individual will be cut off from the congregation. Is that harsh? Yeah, I mean, for instance, if you have maybe, it's tough love, right? That's basically what it is. It's tough love. You have a rebellious child in your home. The child's of age. It's time for you to move on. You're disrupting the household, right? Even in the church. You have somebody who's defying. It's really time for you to move on. And we see that in the New Testament, don't we? We have Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 through 17 deals with the exact same issue. Matthew chapter 17, or Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, and this will be familiar to you. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. In other words, I'm here for reconciliation. I'm trying for reconciliation. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of the two or three witnesses every word may be established. And if he neglected to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be put unto thee. Let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican. That's a worst case scenario, isn't it? When you're trying to get a brother to be reconciled, bring him back in the fold, you're going one-on-one so it doesn't get spread out, so you get out of proportion. Now you're going you're taking a witness with you, and next thing now you're bringing the issue before the church. And if that person doesn't still come around, basically now that person is cut off from the congregation, isn't he? And so here we have God basically repeating that same command there in Matthew. So the individual who's defiant needs to be cut off from the congregation. It's left to go off to his own thing, get away, get out of there. And here we have Moses gives an illustration of this. Verse 32, and while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. Pastor Allen was talking about Jesus using an illustration of a goat falling into a ditch, and someone comes to help the guy get out the goat, and then they said, "Oh, you can't be doing that. That's happening." Well, we have kind of a similar situation that's being discussed here. This guy is gathering sticks upon the Sabbath day. I think there are two different issues. You're trying to take care of an animal, right? But this is work related. You're gathering sticks. You can do that another day. Verse 33, and they found him gathering sticks, brought him unto Moses and Aaron unto all the congregation. And they put him in ward, because it was not declared what should be done to him. Notice, we're going to get into stoning, but they didn't stone him immediately because they found him picking up sticks on the Sabbath day, right? They took him in to be judged. They brought there's witnesses, and the case is being heard. Moses hears the case, and now Moses is going to go before the Lord. Verse 35, and the Lord said to Moses, the man shall be surely put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. And all the congregation brought him without the camp and stoned him with stones. And he died as the Lord commanded Moses. And so here's an illustration of defiant sin. He knows he's not supposed to do work on the Sabbath day, and yet he does. And the witnesses see him, and they bring him in, and he's judged. So number one, the man is caught defying the law. The man is caught defying the law. Number two, the man is arrested. For all intents and purposes, arrested. What did you put down?
Put inward,
Put inward?
like it said in the Bible.
You got the King James answer, huh?
Yeah.
Number three, God issues the sentence of
Yeah.
death. Violating God's command is very serious, isn't it? And so, my goodness, if someone's picking up sticks on the Sabbath day, and that's the sentence, I'm definitely going to listen to all God's commands, right? This is what's being promoted here. This man is, if you want to say, being used as an example. Number four, the congregation stones him outside of the camp. Executions don't take place in the city. It's taking place outside of the camp. Just like Jesus died on the cross outside of the camp, outside the city. Questions on that? Individuals being cut off from congregation? Yeah.
Back then, could he have repented for doing that and not been, or was it just, that's it?
Well, maybe the man that saw him do this said, "Hey, you better not do this." No, I'm going to continue. I need this one. Okay. You could surmise that, or he could have stopped doing, or maybe he's been doing a couple days Sabbaths in a row. I don't know, but definitely he was not being repentant. Intentional, yes. All right, now. Chapter 15 goes on to verse 37, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and they put upon the fringe of their borders a riband of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye used to go a-whoring, that ye may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy unto your God. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, to be your God. I am the Lord your God. And so fringes, God commands here that on their clothes that they have these fringes, and they have ribbons of blue in them. And the whole purpose of that is to remind them of God's law. Remind them of God's law. That I got to remember what God has commanded. And so that's the whole purpose of this. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 12, Thou shalt make thee fringes upon four quarters of thy vesture, wherewith thou coverest thyself. So the fringes are to be blue, ribbons of blue. It's not to be totally blue, but strands. And remember, we talked about this, 2 semesters ago? That these would add up, somehow it adds up to the number 613, the way they tie the fringes. And that's the number of laws that were in the Torah. B, they were to remind the children of Israel a couple things. Number one, all the commandments of God, and do them. All the commandments of God, and do them. And number two, be holy unto your God. be holy unto God. You're separated unto God. You're separated for His will, and God has given you rules the way you're supposed to act and approach yourself. Do we have things around us that remind us about God's Word? Probably many of us have some sort of magnets or things on our cupboards, or maybe some sort of paintings on the wall, like that, every time you look at it, it reminds you of God's Word. It's important.
You did. What was number 6 again, please?
Number 6 is fringes. Fringes. These things. So that's Numbers 15. Numbers 15. Do we have any questions on that chapter? Well, we come to an interesting story. Yet again, we're going to have a rebellion among the people. That seems to be a recurring issue. And so this time, it's the rebellion of Korah. Rebellion of Korah. And Korah is going to challenge Moses' authority. And so we pick it up in Numbers chapter 16 and verse 1. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan, and Abiram, and the sons of Elab, and On, the son of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took men, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto thee, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. And so, first of all, let's talk about the conspirators here in this rebellion. The conspirators. Who's the lead conspirator? Korah. Korah. K-O-R-A-H. Korah. Korah means bald. Bald. That's what the name means. He's bald. Or his mother named him bald. Maybe he didn't have any hair when he came out of the womb. I don't know, but that's what it means, bald. We have here his family lineage, and this is pretty important. Who was his father?
Kohath?
Izhar. Izhar means shining oil. Shining oil. Who was his grandfather? Kohath. Kohath means assembly. What do we know about the Kohathites?
They're the ones that.
They're part of the Levites, right? Okay, we'll just jump ahead real quick. The great-grandfather was? Levi. So we find here Korah is a part of the Levites. That's very important to know. And what do we know about the Levites?
They
responsible for the stuff in the tabernacle.
That's right. They've been separated unto the Lord, right? They're an inheritance to the Lord. And they've been given certain tasks. Now, specifically, what do we know about the Kohathites?
They're the carriers of the sanctuary.
That's right. They're the ones who carry the holy instruments, the holy furniture. They're the ones carrying the Ark of the Covenant. They're the ones carrying the golden altar, the brazen altar, the candlestick, and the table of showbread. So they're the ones carrying all the holy objects. Where did they camp?
Right on the edge of the tabernacle.
They ran on the tabernacle. Claire has her sheet real handy. She's going to go to it. You should see her notebook. Well, she's looking that up. Does anybody know who the Kohathite leader was? Yeah, who was put in charge of the Kohathites? Eleazar. Remember Eleazar? Eleazar is Aaron's third son. The other two have died, if you recall. All right, so how is Moses and Aaron and Korah related?
Their fathers are brothers.
Their fathers are brothers.
Some cousins.
So that makes them cousins. So Amram is the oldest son of Kohath. And so it has a brother Izhar. And so Korah, Moses and Aaron, they're all first cousins. And so very significant here for the rebellion that's taking place. Let's put it in perspective. You've just found out that you're never going to be leaving Kadesh Barnea, you're never going to be going into the promised land. You just came out of Egypt. You've spent the past 2 years in wilderness wanderings, and now you're facing another 38 years before you all die off. And, I'm sure, and you're trying to get into the promised land, and you're pushed back, and God's no longer moving. And, what can you do? You get frustrated. And here we have Korah taking the lead and saying, basically, Moses, well, why is Moses ahead of us? He hasn't even taken us into the promised land. He can't even get to the promised land. He's led us throughout this whole wilderness. For what reason? For us to die here. And here he's getting frustrated. And in fact, what makes it more frustrating for him, he's holding the holy objects, right? We're going to talk about some Jewish tradition about Korah, but it's said in Jewish tradition that he carried the Ark of the Covenant. He was one of the men physically carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Now, in his position, you can't get closer to doing the work of the Lord outside of being Aaron, right? And Aaron's children, Aaron's sons. And so here he is that close, and he's now wondering, why can't I be a part of it? Why is Moses and Aaron the ones doing this leadership when we should be able to do it? We have all rights and access. We're all called unto the Lord. And so this is where the rebellion takes place. If you're interested in the genealogy of Moses and Korah, you can go to Exodus chapter 6, verses 18 through 20, 1 Chronicles 6, and 1 Chronicles chapter 23. It lays it all out there on the parents and the children and the great-grandparents and so forth. So these are all family. Korah is family with Moses and Aaron. They're first cousins. And so the Kohathites were the closest to priesthood you could get without being a priest, unless you were in Aaron's family. All right, Jewish tradition. Jewish tradition says that Korah was very rich. Tradition states that he got his wealth by discovering treasures that Joseph supposedly hid in Egypt. Tradition also states that it took 300 mules to move his treasure. Tradition also says that Korah was a wise man, chief of his family, and he was one of the Kohathites that carried the Ark of the Covenant on his shoulder. And so apparently this man, according to tradition, was a man of extreme wealth. And, men with extreme wealth with nothing else in their hands want to move up in position, right? And so the next position up from carrying the Ark of the Covenant is actually ministering in the tabernacle. And that was off limits to him, and he didn't like that. And so it kind of puts in perspective.
Why would we have Joseph Just what about
this tradition says that Joseph apparently hid treasure somewhere in Egypt, and Kohath found it, discovered it. And that, in other words, he got his wealth not by working for it. It was discovered. But that's nowhere in Scripture. There's nowhere in Scripture where Joseph hid treasures or anything like that.
Yeah. Tradition.
Tradition. All right, so Korah is the lead instigator here. We have three other names that are mentioned that are also co-conspirators. And what were their names? Dathan, Abiram, and On. Dathan and Abiram were brothers. And Dathan means belonging to a fountain. And Abiram means my father is exalted, or the exalted one is my father. That's a pretty cool name, Abiram. Jewish tradition says about these two brothers that if you recall in Exodus, where Moses comes across an Egyptian hitting another Hebrew, and then Moses kills that Egyptian, looks around, makes sure no one's watching him, and Moses then kills the Egyptian. And the next day he comes across two Hebrew men fighting. Tradition says these are those two Hebrew men, and we see that in Exodus. We see this story in Exodus chapter 2, verse 12. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together, And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a prince and judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me, as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. And so after that, Moses then ran off. And so tradition says that these two men were these two brothers, Dathan and Abiram, and that every murmuring and rebellion that occurred from there on out, these two men were a part of and instigated. Yes?
What was Dathan, what meaning of Dathan's name again? Belonging what?
Belonging to a fountain. Belonging to a fountain. And so it seems that these two men have been striving against Moses and being a hindrance to Moses every step of the way, a thorn in Moses' side. I'm sure every church has some of those type individuals that everywhere you turn, they're there and instigating something. All right, there's a third individual. What was his name? On. On means wealth or vigor. Wealth or vigor. On. All right, Nathan and Abiram's father was who?
Eliab.
Eliab. Eliab means my God is Father or God is Father. My God is Father or God is Father. I guess you could see that in the word. El is God and Abba, Father. Eliab. All right, how about On's father?
Peleth.
Peleth. Anybody want to guess Peleth's meaning name? His name means swiftness. Swiftness. I guess he was a fast man. And all three of these men came from what tribe?
Reuben.
Reuben. They were Reubenites. They were Reubenites. So since this involved mostly the tribe of Levi, who was called out to the service of the Lord, and the tribe of Reuben, who was more warriors, this was an attack against both the religious and political leadership of Moses and Aaron. The religious and political leadership of Moses and Aaron. All right, who else do we have involved?
250 princes.
250 princes, leaders.
Who was the great-grandfather?
Reuben. Reuben. Does anybody remember what Reuben's name means? Behold the sun. Behold the sun. In other words, Reuben comes out, is presented, and they say, behold the sun. Reuben. My neighbor's name is Reuben, so that always comes to mind. What do we know about these 250 men?
They were leaders.
They were leaders, right? They were famous. They were well known. And they were well respected. So here we have this rebellion that's taking place that's now impacting not only these shady characters of Korah and Abiram, On, and Dathan, but now you got well-respected men out there that's now being pulled into this conspiracy. So they confront Moses and Aaron. They confront Moses and Aaron. So see, confronted Moses and Aaron. So when they gathered themselves together against Moses and Aaron, said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. What was their issue?
Why do you place yourself over us?
Yeah, why do you place yourself over us? How can you be the leader? Why are you the leader? God has made all of us holy. We all should be able to be leaders. Why are you the leader? Why are you forcing yourself upon us? So their discontent centered around the allegation that Moses and Aaron were unjustified in setting themselves over all the people, since by virtue of Israel's being the Lord's covenant community, all of them were equally holy and capable of being leaders. What they had neglected to point out was that the Lord himself had appointed Moses and Aaron to their positions. So now we see the interaction between Moses and the conspirators. So when this happened, when this is brought before Moses, what did Moses do? Well, Moses went to the Lord. Moses went to the Lord. Moses is very consistent in this, isn't he? It's really remarkable to see every time an issue comes up, this is what Moses does. So we need to make sure we do that ourselves. Moses went to the Lord. Verse 4, and Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. When Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. And we see Moses being very consistent with the Lord, going to the Lord when issues arise. What did Moses instruct them to do?
Go to the tabernacle.
Yeah, go to the tabernacle. Let's go to verse 5. And he spake unto Korah and to all his company, saying, even tomorrow the Lord will show who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him that hath chosen will he cause to come near unto him. So Moses instructed the conspirators. We're on the top of the page, B. Moses instructed the conspirators to the tabernacle. And God was to show them who was his appointed leader that was able to approach him. Remember, there's only one man that's able to go into the Holy of Holies. It's the high priest, and the high priest is Aaron.
Tabernacle or what?
What is that?
I'm good.
God. And God was to show them who the appointed leader was. Everyone gather around to the tabernacle, God will show you. If you don't believe me, if you don't respect me, God will show you. See, Moses also requires them to take what? Censers. So verse 6, this do take you censers, Korah, and all his company. Take you censers. What's a censer? It's this object here. It's where you put the incense, the burning coals and incense, and you take it. And so they're taken to the golden altar, on a daily basis. Is it twice a day or once a day? You're going into the holy place. But on the Day of Atonement, he's going into the Holy of Holies. And so this is what he's saying. Well, if God chooses, for all those who think they should be approach God himself, here's a censer. If God chooses, whoever he chooses, you're ready to go to the Holy of Holies. And so this is a symbol of going all the way to the Holy of Holies, going all the way to God himself. Right? And of course, the only one who can do that is Aaron. And so Aaron has his own censer as well. So that's the meaning of that. Leviticus chapter 16, verse 12. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before the Lord, and his hands full of sweet incense, beaten small, and bring it within the veil. And he shall put the incense upon the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is upon the testimony, that he die not. Full access to God. Not everybody has it here, right? Only one, only the high priest. Only the high priest can approach God. And here Korah is saying we all can approach God. Well, God's going to show you. So, D. See, they were to take censers. They were to take censers filled with fire. So be ready the next morning. Verse 7, and put fire therein, and put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. You take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. So Korah is saying, Moses and Aaron, you're taking too much on yourself. You're putting yourself above us. Moses then responds back, no. Sons of Levi, you're doing too much. You need to get back in your place. You're out of place.
You've gone too far.
You've gone too far. You're out of place. So Moses stated that sons of Levi had gone too far in their rebellion. Gone too far in their rebellion. E. Moses reminded the tribe of Levi of their special position before God. Okay? So you've gone too far. You sons of Levi, you're in your place. This is your place, and it's a special place. Verse 8, and Moses said unto Korah, hear, I pray you, you sons of Levi, seemeth it but a small thing unto you that God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? This is no small thing. You have been chosen for a special duty, to minister to the people. Your duty is not to go into the tabernacle, but this is your duty. You've been specifically chosen for this duty. Verse 10, and he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee. And seek ye the priesthood also? Why do you want more? God has given you. For which cause both you and all thy company are gathered together against the Lord? And what is Aaron that ye murmur against him? In other words, you're not attacking Aaron. You're attacking God himself. You're attacking God's sovereignty for choosing Aaron. You are way out of line. You are way out of line. God has clearly delegated the office of the priesthood to Aaron's family. Way out of line. And you're in a special place. You're a chosen people. You're separated even further unto the Lord's work. Verse 12, and Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, we will not come up. So apparently here was this confrontation with Korah and Moses, and now we have Moses is trying to get all the co-conspirators together, and what do? They refuse. They refuse. They refuse.
Getting cold feet.
It might get hot pretty soon. But what was their claim? Verse 13, it is a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou make thyself together a prince over us. Moreover, thou hast not brought us into the land that floweth with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. So we're kind of having two issues here. One is religious in nature with Korah, right? Who wants to go into the holy place. And we have Dathan and Abiram. They're more interested in the political side of it, leading the people. And so as we pointed out before, they're upset that, Moses, you led us all this way. You said we're going to go to the promised land, and we haven't done it. You have not led us into the promised land. You shouldn't be leading. Now notice they say here, a land flowing with milk and honey. What land are they talking about? Egypt. Egypt. Notice here, it is a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey. Egypt. They're pointing back to Egypt, as Egypt has the land flowing with milk and honey. Apparently they forgot about the slavery part. But they're looking backwards,
Grass
aren't
is
they?
always green on the other side.
That's right. Especially when you go to the other side and you look back, then that's greener, right? Moreover, thou hast brought us into the land that floweth, hast not brought us into a land that floweth with milk and honey. Of course not. Kadesh Barnea is not the land flowing with milk and honey. You're not even in the promised land. And you're not getting into the promised land. Or giving us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. All those things you promised us, Moses. We don't have it. We don't have it. And what do you think of this statement here? Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? What does that mean? Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? It's not literally saying that, Moses, you're going to come out and gouge out our eyes. It has to do with that these men saw the true intentions of Moses. And he was not going to pull the wool over their eyes, even if he tried. We're not going to go up and listen to your babble, Moses. We're not going to hear that and have our eyes gouged out. We don't know what's going on. We know your true intentions, Moses. That's what they're saying. We're not going to come up and listen to you. We don't respect you at all. You can't say anything you say. We're not going to listen. We're not going to listen because look, you haven't even done what you said you're going to do. All right, so that's their issue. All right, so Moses responds. Moses is asking God not to accept their offering. Verse 15, and Moses was very wroth. What did you mean? Like, what is going on? I've done everything. It's you guys who we didn't go to the promised land for. Why are you blaming me? Moses was very wroth and said unto the Lord, respect not their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, neither have I hurt one of them. So again, we see he's upset. He asked that they don't take any of their offerings. They need to be removed. Well, what is he saying? What does he mean here when he says, I have not taken one donkey from them, neither have I hurt one of them? What are you saying?
They move right away.
Right, that's right, absolutely right. He states that he has never once taken an advantage of his position or profited in any way from his position. He has never taken a donkey from one of them or hurt any of them. He's done his best to, his position could take him a lot of advantages of, right? He's stayed away from all that, all the trappings. Pastor Allen on Sunday was preaching on some of the trappings that pastors have, fame, money, women, things that you need to stay away from and be on guard from. And here these guys are blaming Moses. And Moses saying, I have not done anything. I haven't even taken one donkey from you. But we've seen so many times today where a so-called pastor is taking advantage of his position. I'm sure you've seen newspaper articles where pastors are wanting their own private jets and
Yeah, 65.
their big houses and so forth. They're taking advantage of the congregation. You all are church leaders here in some form or fashion, and you all need to be on extra guard against the trappings and the perception of taking advantage of members of the congregation. Be on guard with that. Perception can be more than reality, right? We need to be very, very careful. Nehemiah ran into this issue. Nehemiah chapter 5. Remember Nehemiah? He's the guy who rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 17. Moreover, there were at my table 150 of the Jews and leaders besides those that came unto us from among the heathen that are about us. Now that which was prepared for me daily was an ox and 6 choice sheep. Also fowls were prepared for me. And once in 10 days store all sorts of wine. Yet for all this required not I the bread of the governor, because the bondage was heavy upon this people. Think upon me, my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. Nehemiah being he had to be governor of Jerusalem because he was underneath the empire, the empire. And he had all the trappings of a governor would have, all the fine foods at his tables, and no, I'm not going to have any of that. The people are suffering out there. I'm not going to take advantage of that. So be careful. Be careful. Here Moses was being accused of taking advantage, and he says, no, I have not even done anything. All right, the judgment of the Lord. Now we get into judgment. Verse 16, and Moses said unto Korah, be thou and all thy company before the Lord, thou and they and Aaron tomorrow, and take every man his censer and put incense in them, and bring ye before the Lord. Every man his censer, 250 censers, thou also and Aaron, each of you his censer. And he took every man his censer and put fire in them, and laid incense thereon, and stood in the door of the tabernacle of the congregation with Moses and Aaron. So Moses, Aaron, and the conspirators were to come to the tabernacle with their censers. Come to the tabernacle is the blank there. Verse 19, we see the glory of the Lord appears. Verse 19, and Korah gathered all the congregation against him unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. God has shown up to show the people who he has really appointed. Verse 20, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. God's not very happy with this request, is he? So God asked Moses and Aaron to separate themselves from the conspirators. All right, Moses and Aaron, you may want to step aside for this. I'm about to consume everybody there in the way. What did Moses and Aaron do?
They plead for
And plead for the nation. They're on their hands and knees again. The issue's not even over with, and they're on their hands and knees again. Verse 22, and they fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? They're pleading for the people again. Would you do that? After all, these past several years, and just time and time again, your leadership authority is taken into question, and yet you're still going to God pleading for them? This is Moses. There's an interesting title that Moses calls God. What is that?
God of the spirits of all flesh.
God of the spirits of all flesh. An unusual title that only occurs one other time in Scripture, when Moses asked God to appoint his successor. We see that in Numbers chapter 27, starting verse 15. And Moses spake unto the Lord, saying, Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, there's the title, set a man over the congregation, which may go out before them, and which may go in before them, and which may lead them out, and which may bring them in, that congregation of the Lord. Be not as sheep, which have no shepherd. Who was the one that was chosen? Joshua. Verse 18, the Lord said unto Moses, Take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom the Spirit is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him. What do you think this title means? What is it referring to?
God.
To God?
Creator.
God's the creator. The title refers to God's omniscient understanding of all people. His omniscient understanding of all people. Surely God, so Moses is basically saying, God, surely you know that it's really only one person, there's only one instigator here. The rest are just following him. They're not the ones that are causing this. There's only one man, Korah, who was the instigator who led the others to rebellion. Why would you kill everybody off when it's only one man that's causing this? So that's his plea. Apparently he was okay with Korah being killed. So God has the people separate themselves from Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and their families. Verse 23, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the congregation, saying, Get you up from all the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He spake unto the congregation, saying, Depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they got up for the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side, and Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of their tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children. All right? Moses and Aaron has separated them from the people. Now the people need to separate themselves from Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and the families. Even separate themselves from all their tents and their material wealth. So then we have the guidelines for this contest, this question in hand. Verse 28, And Moses said, Hereby ye shall know that the Lord hath sent me to do these works, for I have not done them of mine own mind. I'm not the one who put myself in this position. It's not of my own accord. You're going to see the Lord is the one who has done this. Verse 29, If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth, and swallow them up, with all that appertained unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. So we have two scenarios here that God's going to use. Number one, if these men, if all these guys here, talking to the congregation, if everybody here lives to an old age and dies a natural death, you know that Moses and Aaron put themselves in their position and God was not a part of it. Right? So that's number one. If they lived to an old age, then the nation would know that Moses had no special calling from God. But if these men here were to die, these families here were to die an unusual death, say by being swallowed up by the earth, then the nation would know that Moses was called to God. A very unusual way to die, isn't it? A very unusual way to die.
That's the first sinkhole. Somebody said it's the first sinkhole.
Sinkhole in the desert.
Sinkhole in the desert.
That's what you say, going straight to hell.
What he got up.
Well, our time is already 8:05. We need to stop here, and we'll pick up with the earth opening up next week. This is Sefner. Sefner. Well, the house may go down. If you recall, this man was sleeping in his bed. The earth opened up and swallowed him up.
Just the bed.
No,
Yeah.
This is the bedroom.
The bedroom. And they never found
They
it.
never
I
found it.
never found it. See, there's the hole. The sinkhole has already taken place in this picture. The house has been collapsed. It's just his bedroom.
Oh, no.
So God has that ability to do whatever He desires to do.
That's a strange way.
All right, so we're going to reconvene here next week, talking about the earth opening up, the punishment, and we'll see who God chooses as his leader. I guess that's still the question, right? So that's where we'll leave off. All right, let's close in prayer. Dear Father, Lord, thank you for today, Lord. Thank you for your word. Lord, may we be on guard against trappings that may be before us, Lord. Lord, just guide us and direct us, protect us, Lord. And Lord, may we honor the appointed one that you put before us, Lord. And Lord, may we serve you, Lord, in the capacity you have us. Lord, we praise you for all things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.